12 years ago, Bryn Hughes lost his daughter, Nicola, after she was killed in the line of duty alongside her police colleague, Fiona Bone.
In her memory, Bryn, alongside other families, has campaigned for emergency service workers and other public servants who've died to be recognised posthumously.
And today, the first recipients of that award, named the Elizabeth Emblem after the late Queen, have been announced. Our reporter Tim Muffet has a story.
Running on the hills where I live, you can process your thoughts, or attempt to process your thoughts. What would she be doing? What rank would she be? What job would she be doing?
It's been a long, grief-stricken journey for Bryn Hughes. It's 12 years since his daughter Nicola was murdered while serving as a police constable. He finds running can help.
You're alone with your thoughts. As a grieving father, to get through it, you've got to put one foot in front of the other.
Now, Bryn's doing precisely that along Downing Street. He's here with Paul Bone, whose daughter Fiona was murdered alongside Nicola. The unarmed officers were shot and attacked with a grenade whilst attending what was believed to be a routine burglary in Greater Manchester.
She was nice, friendly, liked people, and she didn't anticipate dying the way she did, that's for sure. But you know, she knows she had to do the job.
What was she like, Nicola? Mischievous at times, very mischievous at times, very funny when she wanted to be. And I think in our relationship between myself and Nicola, she was far more mature than me, and she used to remind me of that very often.
Bryn and Paul have campaigned long and hard for a posthumous award for public sector workers killed in the line of duty. They've had widespread support from families of others who've died. In March, plans for the Elizabeth Emblem were announced. Bryn went to a factory in Birmingham to see it being created.
It's quite overwhelming, to be honest.
Wow.
To see it from start to finish being pressed by hand and finished by hand is just phenomenal.
And today, the news that Nicola and Fiona have been named amongst the first group of recipients. Bryn and Paul will receive the emblem on their behalf.
So important, so significant, and so overwhelming and all. Not only just Nicola and Fiona, but other police officers. They go to work every day and they're serving the crown and they're wearing a crown on their uniform, and quite rightly so. They should be recognised by the crown, by the state, and I think that's important that they are recognised. And not just police officers, but other public sector workers who've been killed in the line of duty or have died doing the job that they're doing, serving the public, serving us.
You see an awful lot of tragedies like that, you do reflect, particularly if you've got kids.
Yes.
Or what would, and in my own instances, I wouldn't have the wherewithal to go out and do what you've done.
You never know till you know.
Inside number 10, a meeting with the Prime Minister, who wanted to commend Bryn and Paul personally for their campaigning.
Getting it moved on is always hard, takes a certain degree of resilience.
How was your meeting with the Prime Minister?
Very good. The Prime Minister spoke about being a parent himself and being unable to imagine the loss we've suffered and how you find the strength to carry on at times.
They actually come to Downing Street to meet him. It was wonderful. We'll tribute to Fiona and us.
In total, 38 recipients of the Elizabeth Emblem have been named today. Amongst them, PC Yvonne Fletcher, who was killed outside the Libyan embassy during a protest in 1984, and PC Andrew Harper, who died after being dragged behind a car in 2019, having responded to reports of a burglary in Berkshire.
For the military, it goes back a long way, so it's only right that the civil forces catch up with what the military have had for years.
Congratulations on your campaigning, and I'm sure your daughters will both be so very proud of you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
12 years after their deaths, formal recognition for the bravery and commitment of Fiona Bone and Nicola Hughes, whose lives were given in service. Tim Muffet, BBC News.
Well, I'm very pleased to say we're joined by Martin Wiltshire and Rebecca Lombard-Earl, both of our family members, who will be honoured with this new award. You're both very welcome here this morning. I wonder, if, Martin, if you could start us off with your connection and why it is. This is your dad, whose name was Malcolm Wiltshire, who was a police officer. What were the circumstances in which he died?
It was in 1985. He was an observer in the aircraft. They were looking at traffic issues around Ringwood town centre on Market Day, and unfortunately the aircraft crashed and killed him and the pilot, who was also a policeman, on that day.
And I'm sure, with your permission, we're seeing a picture of your dad now. So this was, this was in the line of duty.
Yes.
He was taking traffic images for what would have been routine business for policing, and died in a tragic way. This must mean the world to you.
Yes. Now. Yeah. Immensely proud. Dad loved his job. He took pride in his work. So yes, it reflects on how I feel. And
in a way, it's a lovely opportunity. We'll come to you in a second, Rebecca. But to kind of, for you, I'm sure, and for us to kind of share a bit of his personality, because sometimes when people die in those circumstances, you do get a chance to celebrate who they are. But for you, that must be a big part of it. For you and your family, to share with people what your dad was like.
Yes, yeah. It's through Hampshire Police Federation, I've been welcomed back into the police family, and I can share my experiences. I find it really comfortable to share it with other police officers and other sort of families that have been through a similar sort of circumstances I have.
Did it feel slightly like unfinished business in a way, that this is going to... And closure is one of those words that I sometimes think is, difficult to use. Who knows what that means? But was there an element of that now that this is happening?
In some ways, it was nearly 40 years ago next year that it happened, but it's really special that now that he's been recognised and his memory is sort of kept alive with this award.
We should talk about your sister, Fleur. I love the way that you laugh, because we were saying just because I was reading about Fleur, Rebecca, and I said to you, didn't I? She sounds really sassy.
She was very sassy.
She loved doing what she did. She loved the fire service.
She loved life, including the fire service. Yes, she was absolutely passionate about it. She originally wanted to become a lawyer, and then one day she was reading a women's magazine before Facebook and all of that, and she saw an article about female firefighters, and she just said, "That's it. This is what I want to do."
Like, to the point, didn't she kind of go close to just get work experience nearby?
Yeah, so initially when she applied they lived in Derbyshire, and she applied to Derbyshire, but she was 18, and they said, you need to get some experience of life. They said she was a little bit head girlish. She didn't agree. So she became a retained firefighter.
Seeing a picture of you two, you're her older sister.
I am her older sister, yeah. But she used to call me Little Sis because she was much taller.
Taller than you.
Yeah. So, yeah, she joined the retained, but she'd had a little MG car, and we lived up a dirt track, and she used to always get there last, and she was frustrated. So she took a voluntary job at the primary school opposite the fire station, so that when the pager went off, she could just run across the road, and all the kids thought it was amazing that, Fleur would just run over there and do her thing.
What circumstances caused
So
her
she when she went full-time, she joined Avon and Somerset, and on 4th February 1996, she was called with her colleagues to a fire at a supermarket in Bristol, and they arrived, and tragically it was, very extreme fire, much worse than was anticipated originally. It turned out to be arson, and unfortunately she lost her life in a flashover.
That happened in 1996.
96, yeah.
So nearly 30 years.
Nearly 30 years, yeah.
Ago.
28 years and a bit.
And we've got, we've got the emblem here that, Bryn, you all have been kind of pushing to have. What does this mean? What does this mean to you?
It's hard to put into words. That's a question I've been asked a lot this week. It's hard to put into words, but my sister was fortunate because she was awarded the Queen's Gallantry Medal by Her Majesty the Queen in '98. So we felt that we had some sort of recognition. But I felt very strongly in my parents that not everybody gets that opportunity. My sister was fortunate. And what about all the other fallen firefighters and police officers and emergency workers? They all deserve this recognition. So we were very, very pleased that Bryn was campaigning to get this. And obviously this is for the next of kin. It's an award for the next of kin, which is slightly different. So I think it's got a very deep meaning, and it becomes part of the legacy of that person and for their family, that in the future, when you Google somebody, it'll come up that they were awarded that, and it's very special.
Was she fussed about awards? Because you've mentioned...
No, she was absolutely not. She was not fussed about awards, although she seems to be racking them up, I have to say. She got the Silver Axe when she was a recruit, obviously the Queen's Gallantry Medal, and she would not be fussed about this at all. She would think it was a bit silly. However, she was a real family person and she was a real people person, and she would be absolutely thrilled of what it means for all of the recipients and the organisations that employed them. And she would be absolutely thrilled. I'm going to get emotional now, for my parents. And it should be my dad sitting here. And now he's got out of it and sent me instead.
Your dad, yeah, because your dad's still alive.
He is, my dad's still alive. He's 80 and my mum's 77. They're both still alive, you know. As my dad says, fully paid up members of the Coffin Club. So just dodging it nicely. So he couldn't come today, so he sent me. But to me, what this means is my sister was a hero. She turned up to work every day, an ordinary person. She went into work that day, expected to come home for a tea, and didn't. And obviously that happens to a lot of people. And my parents had to carry on. And so to me, my parents are heroes. So that is why this is so important, because that medal is for them.
Well, Rebecca, I mean, you say all that very beautifully and very movingly. Have you met before, you two?
No, only last time. We're lifelong friends now.
I mean, because one of the realities of this is that people who are the loved ones, children, sisters of those who do these kind of roles, there is a burden, isn't there? There is pressure on you in the knowledge that the people you love are doing roles that are necessarily dangerous. And it is something that outsiders, people who don't know people, who don't have lovers, maybe can't really fully understand.
Yeah.
But you two know this because your dad was a police officer. Sister was a firefighter. It's something you live with, isn't it?
And you'd have seen your mum experience that as well. And I know your mum passed away 3 years after your father, but you would have seen her watching him go to work.
Supporting him as well,
yeah,
and the family. And, you know, he worked sometimes shift work or on the call-outs and things, and disrupted the family life. He restricted sort of holiday times that he could take holiday. So, yeah, it's all part of that work.
Yeah, Rebecca, that is the thing, isn't it? It's a kind of a marker, for, as you've said very well, for the families,
it is
as
very
well
important
as for the individuals.
Yeah, for the families and for the organisations. And Martin and I were discussing last night with his police and fire, and both of us have been fully embraced by the relevant services. And they do. You lose a family member, and you then gain an entire huge family. It's you can't really describe it, can you, Martin? No, but it is very supportive.
When will you wear this, Martin?
As much as I can.
Will
yes,
you wear it?
Yeah, I will do. It's sort of some of the events that I take part in to remember my dad, and perhaps when I'm wearing a suit or just everyday clothing, I'll wear the smaller version as much as I can. The
occasion itself, you just because there will be a formal moment when you'll be presented. Do you know what do you know about that?
Well, we found out that His Majesty the King would like to formally present the emblems to the recipients, so that's lovely. Possibly sometime before the end of this year, as far as we're aware. We're just waiting to hear.
That kind of is the ultimate honour, isn't it, in terms of if you're going to recognise people who have served and protected all of us.
Yeah. Well, as you said, it's an award from the Crown, isn't it? So. Yeah.
Really special.
Do you know, I'm just pride. Just pride, and it is thoroughly deserved. And thank you for talking about Fleur and for talking about Malcolm as well.
Thank you for having us.
Because we got to know them a bit, just a little bit.
That's the important thing, isn't it? It's part of legacy and passing on that, you know, getting to know them. And I've often said that, and you'll be the same, they are a police officer or a firefighter, but they existed so much more outside of that.
Rebecca Lombard-Earl, sister of Fleur, thank you. Martin Wiltshire's son of Malcolm, thank you both very much.
Thank you.